Genpact and CNBC TV18 present Transformation for Good.
Aditya, I just want to take the point that Reshma was making forward and share with us your experience of working in the education sector. And as I said, working with state governments, working with the center. How hard has it been for you? And what do you believe is the biggest deterrent in getting this public-private partnership to work much more efficiently? One of the challenges that I've seen as we've been tracking, especially the education and the healthcare sectors, is the government doesn't want to let go. So that seems to be a problem, and it's across different states, and the experience could be varied. But what do you see as being the biggest deterrent in getting in the way of this public-private partnership?
So we work across 15 different states. We work with the central government, multiple agencies in education, health, and water. And consistently, we actually find that it's actually pretty easy to work with government.
Okay.
And most people, I think, haven't interacted enough with government. You and I, when we went to school, we imagined the collector was a separate human being. He was built of a different DNA. We couldn't meet him.
He's not.
So, he's not at all. I mean, he's just one of us who actually passed the IS exam while we went to IIM. So he's the same guy. And once you start accepting the other person also as a human being with his own incentives, his own emotions and stuff like that, whether it's a politician or a government, and once you have that empathy, the ability to work is very different.
Yeah.
Because actually they're struggling. Every politician is struggling because the aspirations of the electorate versus the ability of the administrative system to deliver,
yeah.
There is a huge gap. Now that gap is where they see the possibility for corporates to come in and deliver some value. Because the aspirations of electorates are for jobs tomorrow morning, health tomorrow morning, schools that work, skilling that works.
Yeah.
Right? This is the minimum aspiration that you want. But the delivery system is still a bygone delivery system which was created during the British time. It hasn't really changed. It was created for revenue administration, for tax collection,
yes,
for policing.
Yes.
It wasn't created for development. It didn't know how to interact with millions of citizens.
Yes.
It knew how to collect tax from a small subset of citizens. And really the reorganization of that delivery system is extremely critical. My experience is a disproportionate number of governments are taking inputs from corporates in terms of how to improve that delivery system. So we go in right from, we have the Genpact Center for Process Transformation at the Piramal School of Leadership is specifically for bringing these process skills to government.
Yeah.
Right? So we're all very, we think it's very sexy to go and give in a new pedagogy to children and stuff like that. But when governments are working with 8 million teachers,
yes,
they don't want a new pedagogy.
Yes.
What they want is the leave management system to be improved.
Yes.
Because the leave management system was previously working for 5,000 teachers, it now works for 65,000 teachers.
Yeah.
And it's still a manual system. When you improve that, you release crores of money.
Yeah.
Right? The medical reimbursement system. It's extremely unsexy, boring stuff that you need to do in order to release government's ability to deliver.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of the CSR law. The first phase that we did, we just went ahead and we just made sure there was compliance.
Yeah.
Now if corporates start contributing their skills, legal skills, OD skills, talent management skills, process skills, design skills, innovation skills, I think that's when the next level is really going to take off.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on one point that you made and then throw it open to Sana. You talked about the district collector is not a different human being. You just need to treat him with the same empathy that you would expect someone to treat you with. And the big problem that we see, not just in the private sector, but most certainly when you deal with the government and the private sector, is this trust deficit. How have you been able to deal with that? Is it an issue? And how do you believe that we can get around it?
Great question. So I actually work with a lot of people on this issue. There is definitely a trust deficit, right? Between communities don't trust government, governments don't trust corporates, corporates don't trust communities. So there is that trust deficit. I think that is the role of civil society organizations to bring these three parts together. We have to accept there's a deficit. So the advantage that you have is that everyone is suffering at the moment. Corporates want to do good, don't know how to do good.
Yeah.
Governments want to deliver to their populations. I don't believe 95% of government officers want to deliver value, and communities want to improve. The old story of no one wants to send their girl child to school is not true. They want to send, they don't see value. So the trust deficit is there, and that's the role of civil society organizations to bring the three parties on the same table. There is completely different vocabulary. The corporate vocabulary is one of efficiency, outcomes, process. The government vocabulary is one of inclusion, everyone has to be involved. You can't choose to do 5 schools. You have to do the whole district.
Yeah.
And community vocabulary is about caste politics, economic politics, social politics, women exclusion, stuff like that. So each one has its own politics, and you have to bring those parts together. In fact, the partnership with GenPact also arose because they got several queries from government saying, can you help us, right? That's why we started SASA. We said, government came and said, can you use your skills to help us add value? And we spent almost 1.5 years, 2 years between us learning GenPact skills, GenPact learning government, government learning us, and I think that 2 years of investment was what it took to be able to add value today.
Absolutely, and I think, again, the fear we had was that we didn't know government, and I think what was interesting is, firstly, thank you for calling the work that we do boring and uninteresting.
And unsexy, not sexy.
Okay, I much appreciate that, and we look forward to scaling up with you. But it's true, what we do is unsexy. It's not big stuff, it's lots of little stuff.
Yeah.
What he does is the big stuff. What he understands is how to work with government. What he has built is the pedagogy. What we do is come in and fix the little problems which allow his organization to make larger impact. And I think that was the core of what we started to do. The core of why we started this Transformation for Good, the Social Impact Fellowship is, there are 7,000 NGOs in India. 80% of those are in the first 3 years of inception. They all have a set of things that they want to do more of. How can we actually help them to do what they do and do it better? How can we help them with the unsexy stuff that we do, which could be, I'm not letting you forget this. It's process improvement.
Yes.
It's
I'm a chartered accountant. I was born unsexy.
There's a contest now on who's unsexier, who's the unsexier, who can use it more often. But it's the stuff that we do for our clients. It's putting in bits of technology, but it's really about helping them scale, helping them take the capability and capacity that they've chosen to take to the not-for-profit sector, but helping them do it better.
So let's try and sort of leave everyone here with thoughts that they can sort of introspect over. And let me start by asking you, Amit, to borrow from Reshma, how do you ensure that there is a happy ending to this story? So what are the 3 or 4 things that you would like to prioritize or see prioritized between the government, the corporate sector, and the social sector?
No, I think, Shireen, I'm actually quite optimistic about the road ahead, notwithstanding the point that Ashish made. I do think the macro is a little choppy.
Ashish is the killjoy on the panel.
No, I think the macro is choppy. I agree with you, with Ashish, that the macro is going to be a little choppy, both global, especially global.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you why I feel optimistic. I feel optimistic because I think our youth are actually thinking very differently about engaging with the social sector compared to my generation. I think they want to be involved with solving problems. They want to enter the social sector much earlier. I mean, Ashish and I both...
Millennials are good for something, huh?
Ashish entered the social sector in his 40s. I started spending half my time in my 40s. I envy him for that. But, I think the youth want to, engage with our problems at a much earlier age. So I'm optimistic because of that. I think there's the CSR money, while it started off kicking and screaming, I think it's brought in both talent and capital into the sector. And I think I'm optimistic, because of that. I think now new partnerships are getting created. This is a good example. I think those partnerships, to the point that Aditya made, which is a very important point, it has the potential of a multiplier effect. And I think I'm, optimistic because of that. I think finally, what would really be interesting is if capitalism itself realizes, going back to your very first question, that its path to survival is if it really discovers its sense of purpose, and then that results in some sort of repurpose, again, as opposed to really just simply hard regulation, to Ashish's point. Then I think that will further bolster my optimism. But I think those in my mind would be the points I'd like to make. But I generally feel optimistic that there's greater good ahead.
So Ashish?
Yeah, so I'm an optimist in general. I would say...
You fooled us!
long term. I mean, look, I think government is definitely much more focused on the development sector today. It really wants to reach out to the last mile citizen and deliver basic services and meet their needs, which is great. So there's greater political salience now than ever before around lots of these issues. Two is there are not only young people coming in to the sector, but there's more energy in the sector as well in general. There's a greater belief, etc. I think we're missing a few things. One is we still way underinvest in actual research, a technocratic approach.
Right.
I mean, if there's something to learn from the Chinese, I mean, they have the heavy hand of the state and all, they're extremely technocratic.
Yeah.
I mean, in school education in one city in Shanghai, there are 400 people in a research institute who study that system and make changes. It's not just NGOs, these are very technocratic people. And we are missing that completely. And the second thing, I think CSR is a huge plus. I'm a big fan. But I think we shouldn't, I think what I see is that business people, or most people, when they get into the development sector, they switch their brains off. It's all about rah, 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 great things we're doing. And it's good, we need to celebrate. But let's call a spade, because let's evaluate carefully. Let's say something's not working when it's not working. Let's iterate and make it work.
Sure.
As opposed to celebrating too quickly.
Yeah.
Let's play the long game. Let's look at the data and say, we're not turning the needle today. It's okay. These are not quick fixes.
Sure.
Right? Fixing education, it takes time. Water takes time. So you've got to stay the course, but call a spade a spade. Let's not just do rah, rah, rah and switch off our brains. We need more technocratic, we need more committed work, and we need to be honest with ourselves.
No, I totally agree with you. Couldn't agree more. You get the final say.
So I'm a delusional optimist, completely delusional. I believe the glass is always 99% full, so I start with that, let me confess. I mean, just think of it. If you go back to 1947, we were a country with 300 million people, came together with 550 different individual feudal states, 10% literacy, right? Less than 40 years average age of existence. If someone was to take a bet on that country and say, okay, 75 years later, we're going to be having this conversation, I wouldn't have taken that bet, right? We've brought this country together, 550 states voluntarily giving up without spitting blood. We've come together. There's something beautiful about the fact that that has happened. I think there was a lot of work in the first 30 years to just make sure that basic thing, the concept of the country existed. Many countries in Africa haven't yet moved from that feudal to a basic democracy. And we are taking the democracy for acceptance. We are taking capitalism for acceptance. The fact that we have a capital market that works, that media that works, just so many things we've set in place. So I think all that is set up so beautifully, and I agree that we are way behind on development. Right? There's lots more to do over there. But even in that, I would be extremely positive about the next 20 years of my life. And I think for 3 reasons. 1 is the politics is good. 2 is youth are good. And 3 is CSR is good. Politics is good because when I was in school, we never imagined, once Chandrababu Naidu brought out a laptop and we thought, wow, finally he's talking about development. Everyone else is only bothered about caste. Now you can't play that game. You have to compete with each other to see how fast you can execute on development. Right? So the political game is extremely different. 2, youth are completely different. When I told my dad I wanted to drop out of college and do something, he said, who's going to pay the bills? But young people today are very confident they're going to get jobs later on. So young people, talented people are getting in much, much earlier than ever before. Right? So you have political intent, you have young people, and you have corporate skills and CSR coming in. Deadly combination. I would bet extremely hard on this.
He's going long on India. Well, and so is the rest of this panel as well. Thank you very much for joining us here this evening.
Genpact and CNBC TV 18 present Transformation for Good.